Hello folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and we are in the Python basic series for beginners, and our today's topic of discussion is object oriented programming. So in our today's video we will discuss about basic terminologies and concepts of object oriented programming, that is class, object, how to create a class, what is difference between methods and functions, what is init method, what is self parameter that has been passed when we define methods in a class, then what is instance method, class method, and what is static method. So if you are someone who is looking forward to learn what is object oriented programming from scratch, this video is for you. And even more, in our upcoming videos we will be discussing in detail about inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism, and abstraction, which are four pillars of object oriented programming. So let's jump in with the definition of object oriented programming. So what is object oriented programming? Object oriented programming is a programming paradigm that uses objects and classes in programming. Class is nothing but it's a blueprint. So if I give you a layman example, consider car as a class. So when I say blueprint, that mean by that I mean a typical design of a car. Forget about the exceptions, but a typical design of a car. What would it consist of? It would consist of four tires, four doors. I'm not talking about two-door car. That's why I said a typical car. So four doors, one engine, steering, and then whatever, uh, the headlights, the backlights, these all these things, a brake, clutch, accelerator, whatever. Now this is a basic design. So on the basis of that design, a car will be formed. It may be any brand, it may be any type, it may be a sedan type, it may be a SUV, it may be a hatchback, it may be a different brand like BMW, it may be a Mercedes, it may be a Ferrari, anything. However, the base class, that is car, the base design would remain the same. All right. So that is nothing but called as a class. And if I say the object of that particular class, car, so my car is one object, your car is another object, multiple cars. So all are objects of class car. Okay. So let's see how we can create these classes. In our example, we are considering student as a class. As we were discussing car as a class, we are considering student as a class. Now you may say, when we will be discussing inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism, and abstraction, yes, we will be discussing in detail in our upcoming videos. Before that, there are few terminologies that we should know, uh, as I mentioned earlier. So let's start with those. How to create a class in the first place? So there is a keyword class, student. Class is a keyword here, student is a class name, the class that I want to prepare, and then a colon. Inside that you may mention the attributes of that particular class. As I said, a brake, accelerator, whatever, these are attributes, right? So, and common to all of the subclasses of the car, it may be sedan type, it may be hashtag, hatchback, but as of now I'm not aware, so I just put a pass here. I run this and I'm successfully able to create a class. I have not currently I have not passed any attribute, but I was just saying as an example, you can pass those whichever are common parameters. That's why class is said to be a blueprint. Now, one more important thing to put here is that Python, in Python, everything is object, in the sense whatever class you create is an object of a base class object. All right, whatever integers, functions that we have used are all objects of base class object. You may see me using object and instance interchangeably because they are one and the same thing. However, some people get confused by the object base class and an object of a particular class. So my car is an object of a class car. Okay. However, integer is an object of a base class object. So everything in Python in the sense is object, because everything, all the objects will come under this class object. Whatever I'm saying, uh, to prove that I have got this is instance method. I'm checking the class that I created, is it really the object of class object, that is instance of that class object. So for to check that, there is an is instance method, and if I run this, I would get the output as true. And now after that, I check whether integer, that is a built-in class, is it an instance of class object? Yes, that is also an instance of that class object. Now I want to create an instance or object of a class that I created, that is student. So to create that, you just need to mention the name of the class and the parenthesis. All right. and assign that to a variable. So s1 becomes one object. There is another object s2 created, that becomes that becomes second object here. You can create third, fourth, multiple objects. You can name, you can give actual names like Vishal or anything. Vishal is my name. So that ways you can create object. No big deal in that. Okay. And the thing is, you also need to verify whether the object that you created, did it is it correct one, is it a object of class student. So to verify, again I use is instance method and I check and I get the output as true. So I have created two objects, s1 and s2. Those belong to class student. This is the way how you create. Going forward in next videos, we will see in detail how those objects will be used. Here in this video as well, while going through few concepts, you may get a little idea. All right, but in detail we will be discussing in upcoming videos, because we will be discussing um, pillars of object oriented programming, as I mentioned earlier, that are encapsulation, inheritance, abstraction, and polymorphism. So for now, let's move into what is methods versus what are methods and what are functions and their differences. We all know methods and functions. We know there is something called as functions, and let's see how and when they are called as methods, or what are the differences between methods and functions. So when we studied, or when in our earlier videos, you may refer to my earlier videos. I will post the link in the description for better understanding of functions. If you are not aware of, if you are aware already of functions, see here I have defined a function called as subtract. All right, and I've written the subtraction. When I call this function, I don't need any help of any class or something. I just call it by its name, pass the arguments, and that's it. I get the result. All right, however, when I define a method, it needs a object of a class to call it. In the sense, if you could see here, I have created a class abc. Inside that, when you define any function, it is called as method. So the function name here is method underscore abc. It takes the self as a parameter. We'll be discussing self shortly. And inside that method, we have written print I am in method ABC of ABC class. So any function you write in a class, it becomes a method, and to call it, you need object of that class. That's the reason here class underscore ref object is created of class ABC, and that is used to call method underscore ABC. So class ref dot method underscore ABC. So if I run this, you would see I am in the method ABC of class was displayed because of this statement, and the function subtract gave the respective outputs when we passed arguments. So the bottom line is that method is dependent on object of a class, while function can be called independently. I hope you have understood the difference between methods and functions. Now moving ahead, class employee. We will be having a look at what is init method. I'm not aware if you know C++ and Java. There is a concept called as constructor. So it is the same thing with this double underscore init method. Okay, it is helped to initialize the object's attributes with values provided when the object is created. This is what I have stated over here as well. So init method is used to initialize particular object's attributes. What it does is that whenever we create an object of this particular class, in this case employee, immediately after that this method will be executed. If you want to see the same, I will just run this cell. You see, I haven't called the method in it with the object reference or something. Even if I don't call, this method gets executed by default. That's why it is said, if you have any compulsion for your class, or for the application that contains a class, and also wants to have internet connectivity or database connectivity, it is recommended that you write your code over here in the init method, so that as soon as the this class is invoked by the object, you will get the internet connectivity or necessary database connectivity. Okay, so this is the role of the init method. Those are also called as magical methods. Okay, but very important thing to remember, that you cannot call this with objects of the class. Here in this case, like, I cannot do e1 dot underscore underscore init, something like that. Okay, as those are automatically executed when you create object E of this class employee in this example. Now, moving ahead, you might have noticed when we define the method in it, we used a parameter called as self. So let's have a look at what is self here. I have created a class greeting. All right. In that class, I mentioned a method welcome. Okay. Now on, I'm calling this as method because I know it's a function that is inside a class. If you look at it, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to check what is self. I had mentioned earlier that self is nothing but a uh, sorry in Python everything is object. So you may agree with me that self is also an object. So if it is an object, it will be stored somewhere in the memory, and exactly that point I would use to understand self. So what I did in this welcome method is I have simply printed a message welcome, and I've tried to check the memory location of self. After that, I've created two objects G1 and G2 for the class greeting, and I will call the method sorry yeah I will call the method welcome with the reference of the objects G1 dot welcome and G2 dot welcome. In that method, I have tried to check the memory location of self, and outside the method I'm also trying to check the memory location of the objects. So let's see what is the output that I get. I run this code. Yeah, and if you see, the memory location that I got with g1 dot welcome is this, the highlighted one. And after that, I printed the memory location of object g1. Okay, so it appeared to be the same. When I executed this statement g1 dot welcome, the print welcome message got printed. After that, this line of after that, when print id self was done, so id of self was printed, it is this one. Okay, after that, g1's id was printed, and you will notice that both of the ids are same. This indicates that self is nothing but your current object. It refers to the current instance of a class. In this case, the class is greeting. So whichever object you are working on currently, that is nothing but a self. When you do the same thing for G2, again, whatever is in self, whatever memory location self has, it's the same of G2. However, the currently object that has been worked upon is G2, and that is what is self referring to. All right, so this is very important to understand. Self is referring to the current object. Okay, and I have mentioned those things over here as well. Then moving ahead, we will have a look at what is class variable and what is instance variable. Class student, we have created a class student, and then instance institute is equal to Texas. Then there is a constructor, that is an init method self. And here in this case, if you look at it, we have passed the attributes. If we were discussing init method, over there we discussed that we will be initiating attributes of a particular class. Okay, so look at this. Here we have taken two attributes, name and course. Okay, so those attributes are called as instance variables because those are defined at instance level. So if I created student, if I create student 1 and student 2 and I pass some attributes like exact name and course to it, okay, so those attributes are their individual attributes and not shared one. But if I try to print the institute of students, student 1 and student 2, it is a common one because it is defined at class level. That is the reason it is called as class variable. And whatever like name and course, in case of student 1, Jane is name and course is JavaScript. In case of student 2, name is John and course is Python. So those are considered instance variable. So if I run this code, you would see the difference. Okay, so these are different names that are being displayed, and if you want the institute to be displayed, it was at class level, that is class variable, so it is common for both of the students. Then moving ahead, we will see one more example wherein we have created employee class. We have given we have initiated employee id, employee name and employee salary as attributes, and you could see here self coming into play. The same thing, the employee name attributes are about to be displayed for each students in the output. That's why what they have done, they have created a separate method display self. All right, because you cannot directly call init method. However, if you notice, one more use of self method is that it is used to communicate between two methods in a same class. Like this init method has self, and that self was used here in the display method as a parameter, because whenever you define a normal method in a class, self is compulsory. All right, so with that self, it was able to fetch employee id, employee name, and employee salary. So when you try to use or invoke the display method with the help of different objects, the respective employee ids, name, and their salary will be displayed. So if I run this, you should be able to see these details for each employee. Look at this: employee id 1, employee id 1, this whatever the employee id is, that is 1, and Ramesh, and the 10,000 is the salary. Ramesh is the name. So it displayed in the format it wanted to, and communicated with the help of communicating with init method in the same class. So that's the thing I wanted to show here. Then what is an instance method? Now we will look at instance method, then what is a class method, and what is static method. So what is an instance method? Again, like instance variable, this instance method is bound to particular instance. Okay, so every object will has its own copy. Like instance method, so this instance attributes are those attributes that are not shared. Similarly, similar thing goes for instance method as well. So I have defined a class called as shape. You would see here, I define a constructor as well. It takes two attributes, edge and a color. Now if you look at the instance methods that are defined here, first one is fin edges, second one is modify edges. Now you would see it returns what? Self dot age. All right, fin edges returns self dot age, and modify age returns set.age is equal to new age. Now we are creating an object of class shape 4 comma blue. All right, because what is this 4 comma blue? 4 is how many number of ages it has, and blue is color, because this is something that is defined by a constructor, that how many parameters will be there. And if you invoke the modify ages method, now what will happen is the shape that was of 4 edges earlier gets modified to 6, because it is at instance level. That is, what is the instance here? It is my square. The modify edges, I put a 6 over here, and I try to print the output. I will get that the my square object has changed the edges to 6. So that's how it works. It is specific to the instance. All right, now moving ahead, we will see what is a class method. To have a look at that, we have imported date time. We have imported date class from date time module, and we will see what is a class method. So we have defined a class person, in that we have taken that person's name and age. All right, so to define a class method, we used decorator at the rate class method. So what is decorator is totally a different topic of discussion. For now, just understand, to mention that a particular method is a class method, we use this at the rate class method, and with that it will declare the following method will be declared as a class method. So here the class method is from birth year. If you could notice here, it takes first parameter not as self. All right, it takes first parameter as a class itself, even not an object of a class. Look at this, I have also mentioned that rather than instance specific data, rather than taking an instance of a class, it takes a class itself. So this is a class, that cls, and name and a year, because whatever the age was entered with this method, I want to check whether that is correct or not. So the name will remain same. Okay, however, I will check the age. The year will be input, the birth year of a particular person will be input, and from today's date I will subtract that birth year, and I'll check that age provided is correct or not. All right, and then def is adult age. This is the another method. You could see here, decorator at the rate static method has been used. This indicates that this method is a static method, so it's just a utility method. You would see no self, no cls mentioned, plain method, just a small method to calculate, okay, whether the person of this age is an adult or not. So it returns um, age is, if he is an adult, age is greater than 18. So it returns the age is greater than 18, true or false, as a output. So let's run this code and see how this works. So some indentation error over here. Let's see what has happened. Hold on. All right, so there was some indentation error. I'll run this again. Yeah. So if I run this, if you look at the output, what is called and what is the output that is displayed. So I create an object person1 of a class person and I pass name and age. Actual this is our actual constructor, and we pass the name and age. So Mayank and 21 was passed. Now what I'm doing is that with the help of class name itself, I am referring to the method person dot from birth year. Why? How I can refer is because it takes a class, and as discussed, it takes a class and not the object of a class. So I'm calling it person dot from birth year, and I pass name and an year. Okay, so from birth year, it takes this year and calculates the actual age and gives me the age to be 28. So the actual age is calculated and then stored in a variable. So when I call this person 2 dot age, because I have created an object of that class. However, some parameters have been modified, and that is the beauty of class method. If you would see, the initial init constructor provided the parameters name and age. However, here we change the parameters and we have used name and year. How could we do that? Because we are using class class as a parameter over here. So a little change we were able to do, and that's the reason we are calling this as a class method. And then the static method, as I mentioned earlier, it's a utility method. It checks whether the person is adult or not. So I just input one age, like age 22, and it gave me the output. Yes, the person is adult. That is, the output provided was true. So I hope you are able to understand the terminologies, and in from the next video we will discuss on inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism, and abstraction. In this video we discussed what is object oriented programming, what is class, what is object, and what are the differences between methods and functions, what is init method, what is self parameter. Then we checked what is instance method, what is class method, and what is static method. I hope this video was informative to you and provided clear insights on basic terminologies of object oriented programming. See you in the next video. Thank you.